everyone, welcome to Pie's Kitchen. Today I'm going to share with you a brownie recipe, but not just any brownies, they are roasted banana brownies. That just sounds so good. We all know that bananas and chocolate go really well together, so I'm a bit surprised it's not done more often, but this idea came from a local bakery near my place that sells a version of roasted banana brownies, so I kind of took that idea and I made it better. So I'm going to share the recipe with you. Let's get started. All right, let's deal with the banana. So I've got here bananas that I've cut about 1/4 inch thick and I laid it out on the same pan that I'm using for the brownies, okay? And you'll see why I'm doing this in a minute. And I want to make sure I pack them as tightly as I can. And when I choose my banana, I want one that is ripe but still got a little green on it. So slightly underripe. I find they hold their shape better. It's not too sweet and it's not going to get too mushy once we roast it, all right? I am going to brush these now with some melted butter. And the melted butter will give flavor, of course, but it's also going to prevent them from drying out when we broil these. Okay, and now I'm gonna pop these under a broiler. I've preheated the broiler really hot because I want them to brown as quickly as possible without spending too much time, because the longer they spend under the heat, the more they will dry out. Here are the caramelized bananas. It smells so good in here right now and I can just eat all this. And as you can see, the broiler is a little bit uneven. That's okay. I need to tell you one thing though. You'll notice that I lined the tray with parchment paper. You're not supposed to use parchment under the broiler because the heat can burn the parchment, as you can see in the corners here. But if I don't use parchment, it makes it harder down the road, as you'll see. I just want to warn you to not make the parchment stick up. So cut it so that it ends right at the bottom here, because the parts that stick up, that'll burn badly, okay? So now I'm going to just move this onto my plate, because I need to use the tray for my brownies. There we go. Ta-da! I'm gonna line this now with another piece of parchment paper, but I want this one to be big. So this is the opposite. I want the edges to actually hang over, because that's how you're able to lift the brownies out. So I'm going to just crumple this up. It is easier to mold a piece of crumpled parchment to the corners than a smooth one. That's all. That's just a little trick. I'm going to brush the bottom with some of the extra melted butter that we had from the bananas. Okay, there's the tray. Let's make the brownie. So the brownie base that we're making is very easy, and it's a recipe that I've been making for at least 10 years. That's how good it is. I haven't felt the need to modify it even in the slightest bit. It is so good. So I've got in here some cocoa powder and some all-purpose flour, and I'm just gonna sift them together because there's always these little lumps in cocoa powder. Mini whisk to the rescue, as always. There's that. And then I'm gonna add some sugar and some salt, of course, to balance that sweetness. Brownie recipes always call for a bit of a terrifying amount of sugar, but it's all good. And then some toasted pecans. They really are the best nut in a brownie recipe. The butteriness of the pecans work super well with the butteriness of the brownie itself. Next, I'm gonna add my chocolate. So what I've got here is dark chocolate. And I actually use good quality dark chocolate, not the baking chocolate, because this is the star here. So what I did here was I chopped them into basically small dice. So once one way, once the other way, and you get tiny little chunks, sort of like chocolate chip size. Now I'm gonna pour this right into my flour here, and I'm not gonna stir it, okay? Just hang with me here. Then I'm gonna beat my eggs. So I've got some eggs over here, and I'm gonna beat that together with my vanilla. Just roughly, just so there are no gloopy white bits. It just makes it easier when you go to mix everything together. Okay, so this butter, I melted on the stove just until it's melted. I don't want this to get any hotter than it needs to. As soon as it's melted, turn the heat off and bring it over, okay? So now I'm gonna pour this warm butter over my chocolate. This is sort of like the secret of this recipe. The heat of the butter will melt most of the chocolate, but it'll leave some chunks still whole. So when you eat your brownie at the end, you'll have like little pieces of melted chocolate, but it's a bit of a surprise at the same time. It's awesome. My egg goes in right on top. And now you just stir everything together. And that's it. That's your brownies. So if your butter was too hot, then it just melts all the chocolate, which is okay. Like that's happened to me too, and it's fine. I just like it better when some of the bigger chunks of chocolate is still unmelted. All right, that's it. Now if you want to skip the bananas, this right here, bake it in the oven, delicious. But we're making it even better. I'm gonna put half my brownies into the pan and spread that all over. So now the bananas. And this is why I roasted the bananas in the same pan I roasted the brownies. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip that right on top of the brownies. And I'm going to try to do this as gracefully as I can. And the bananas will usually stick to the parchment enough that it'll allow you to transfer everything. And I'm always super nervous when I do this. But the parchment is also non-stick enough that you can peel it off relatively easily. See, I did this once with foil, and this was a nightmare trying to pry the bananas off the foil. There you go. Isn't this cool? And now the rest of the batter just goes on top. I always err on the side of putting less batter on the bottom because if you don't have enough for the top, then you're in trouble, right? Then you have exposed bananas and we don't want that. All right, so this is gonna bake in a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for 45 minutes, okay? What you want is for the top to be dry and almost crackly, crusty. I love it. All right, here it is. I've let this cool completely. You don't want to cut this when it's hot, okay? Because it's very soft. It's a very gooey brownie, so you want to let it cool. And by the way, these have a really nice crunchy crust, which is my favorite part. So let's cut out a piece and make a habit of cleaning your knife between cuts, because the stuff that's stuck to your knife, that's going to cause your next cut to be not as clean. And if you lift this up a little bit, it makes it easier to remove that first piece. Oh, look at that. Gooey brownies with bits of bananas and pecans. I don't know about you, but I'm a crust kind of person. I love edge pieces. Oh my gosh, so good. I have made this recipe, this brownie base recipe, so many times in my life. And every time I eat it, I surprise myself how good it is. Because I can't find any other brownie that's as gooey, as moist, with that crust, that crunchy crust. It's almost like a combination of a cookie with a brownie inside. Oh, and now that I've started adding roasted banana inside, it just takes it to a whole nother level. So definitely give this a try. The recipe will be on hotthai-kitchen.com. When you make it, send me a photo on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, please do so right here. And I will see you next time for your next delicious adventure.